Hello, my name is Donna Page. My website's Loving Light Astrologer. This is the Uranus and Taurus for all signs. Hopefully you've seen the longer version that I did of the general impact of Uranus and Taurus for the world and what it means individually, where you can fit it in. And how you work with the sun signs is what you do is you put whatever the sun sign, like Aries, on what's called the ascendant. Of course, the ascendant's right here. And from there, you will look to see where is Uranus and Taurus traveling through your chart. Now, this is a 7-year transit. You will see the effects in hindsight. It isn't until it impacts a personal planet of yours. It's not that apparent. But the beauty of astrology is to be able to understand the messages from the universe. And before it comes to pass, you can start to think about what you want to have changed in your life in that area that Uranus will be traveling through. Most likely, your personal ascendant and your personal house will be different than the sun sign, putting your sun sign on the ascendant. So you can look for your ascendant also. But even that, it's not exact, because unless you have the 0 degrees on your house. But this is whole sign houses, and it will give you an idea. So Aries, here we go. For Aries, the Uranus and Taurus will be traveling for the next 7 years through what's called your solar second house of your finances, what you own, your raw talents. This is a time where there can be great changes in your financial world, and the purpose of it is to shake things up and to uncover and explore what else you have buried within your talent box that you can develop. It may take 6 or 7 years, and at the end of the 6 and 7 years, you can look back and see, wow, I can see the changes that I've made. And I also can see the changes in how I relate to money. So maybe if you have a relationship with money where you spend, if I have it, I spend it, that can change. Maybe you have a relationship with money that is more of, I'm nervous about spending money, then that can change. And also it can, because it's a wild ride, it can be that there's several ups and downs over the next 7 years for your finances. The age group where Uranus, if you are an Aries and you are in one of these 4 age groups, then you will be having a Uranus transit to your personal Uranus. Of course, 84-year cycle, right, would mean if you're 84 years old, then when you turn 84 and you have your Uranus in Taurus, the last time Uranus was in Taurus was between 1935 and 1942. So that would be a big congratulations, to make it around the trip around the sun so many times. But now is, with health, healthcare being so good, and then the Uranian energy is like, it always represents, I want to break free from being stuck in life and do exciting things. The next Uranus to Uranus transit will impact the Aries that was born between 1955 and 1962, and that will be it's a square. It's like, boom, what else can I need to do? So that can be a time where you are considering, what do I do after I don't work anymore? Not necessarily able, in some cases you are, but not necessarily able to say, I've made enough money, I don't have to work. But that inspiring energy of moving forward. when you, then the opposition, which is a big deal, your Uranian opposition. So Aries, if you were born somewhere between 1975 and 1982, somewhere over the next 7 years, you will have your Uranian opposition, which is definitely that midlife vibration of breaking free and doing what you really want to do. And then the first quarter square will be if you were born between 1995 and 2003. So over the next 7 years, starting with 95. And that, again, is I'm going out in the world. I want to experience new things. Okay, now let's move to Taurus. Flip this chart over to the Taurus. Okay, now here you see we have Taurus over here and the ascendant. So if you are a Taurus somewhere over the next 6-7 years with Uranus going through what's called your solar first house, that the first house represents your appearance to the world, how you want to present yourself. And you can have a complete wardrobe change. You know, I'm just different. I want to look different. I feel different. I want to do different things now because Uranus is in Taurus and you have a Taurus sun. Then depending where in the Taurus cycle you were born, you know, the earlier, if you were born very, very early Taurus, this is the year where the Taurus will cross over your sun, and that can represent a change in your job. Not only a change in your appearance in the world and how you want to appear, but a change in what you're doing, because the sun represents all of what we're doing. And also that Uranian energy moving through the first house can be that it impact you physically. So a change in appearance can also sometimes be a change in your physical appearance. It's not just the new wardrobe or the new hairstyle. It can be like getting really fit. I want to get active. That energy of being active and doing things where it lights you up. I want my life to be a little bit more exciting. Okay, now Gemini. Gemini, here we have Uranus going into what's called your solar 12th house. The 12th house is traditionally called the house of our own self-undoing, where we can be our own worst enemy. The house of retreat, the house of being enclosed, like a retreat is, a meditation retreat. Prisons, you're enclosed pretty strongly. Hospitals, right? That's the traditional interpretation for the 12th house. It's a very intuitive, it's one of those strong intuitive houses. And when over the next 6 or 7 years, and again, remember that you see this a lot more in hindsight. When Uranus is going through your 12th house, it is a very good time to get in touch with who you are below of who you think you are. That core soul that you really are. And through doing so, eliminate any of the self-sabotaging habits that you may have. And they don't have to be bad habits like, oh, you know, I smoke. I know that's a bad habit. It's not like that. It's just, it's liberation. Think of it as spiritual liberation. And of course, it can be those things too. But it's that sense of spiritually liberating yourself. And that messages can come from places that in the past is like, wow, you know, where did this come from? I get this dream. I'm taking a shower. Did I really hear that voice, or was it my mind thinking? That type of feeling that can inspire you. And then it is a preparation. This is a time of preparation. Of course, you have your other life going on and your other transits going on. And the years that, if you were born, Gemini, if you were born between 1955 and 1962, 75 to 82, 95 to 2003, then you will be having a Uranus to one of your own Uranus transit, which is a breaking free. In addition to this traveling through your solar house. So that sense, and the Uranus return happens every 84 years. The ones between the opposition, which would be if you were born between 75 and 82, that's traditionally called the midlife crisis, because that is a very strong one about breaking free from anything that restricts you. And that you may find that very intense because of the Uranian in your 12th house. And am I being my own worst enemy by saying I just can't take it anymore? I'm going to leave my job. I'm going to do this. So would you come back after the Uranian transit happens and go, oh, that wasn't so bad after all. So there's this thinking things through, but still liberating yourself from anywhere where you feel in jail, confined. Okay, move on to Cancer. Cancer. The Uranian energy for you will be traveling through this house, the 11th house. The 11th house is traditionally called the house of friendships, groups, and organizations. As the 7 years, it's subtle in some regards, and you will most likely not see the results of Uranus going through your 7th house until well into the transit, well into the 6 or 7 years, maybe 5 years. And of course, it depends on your progress chart and other things in your personal. But in general, this is the generalization because that's what you have to do with sun sign astrology. And going through your house of friendships means that there's opportunity to connect with more people. It also can be that there's an opportunity for you to become a participant in groups and organizations that you feel connected to. Or maybe you are already doing some volunteer work. Maybe someone has already said, oh, you would be great on our board. You would be great helping us out here. Can't you, do this for us or do that for us? Maybe you are contributing money to different causes. And because Uranus and Taurus, in a generic sense, it's just can be destabilizing on the financial side of the life, that you pull away. So you need to look at it in your own personal life. How connected do I want to be? And it can be that new people move in, maybe new neighbors, you connect with new people, and other friends move away. And the same with any group or organization that you're involved with. The time brackets, for a Uranian transit to your own Uranus in your chart, would be if you're 84, that's the Uranian return. It takes 84 years to go around the whole wheel here. If you were born between 55 and 62, that is a Uranus square, which is this, hey, life is moving on, get something, do the things that you can do now while you can still do them. 84 is the same energy. And 75 to 82, you have the important, if you were born between 1975 and 82, the very important Uranus opposition, which is a breaking free from anything that you have been doing for the last 40 years, more or less, that does not speak to you. It's like, why did I marry this person? Why did I take this career on? It's not who I am. I feel suffocated. I would need to break free. So this is a very important time frame where you can go back to school, you can change relationships. Very important. And then there's the first Uranus square that we have to our own Uranus happens around the age of 21, 22. That will be if you were born between 95 and 2003. And that is just, I get a chance to have all these new experiences in life, break free from the earlier years and go off in the world and experience a lot of great things. Okay, let's move on to Leo. Leo. Okay, here we are in Leo. So now you see Uranus at the top of the chart. This is a solar chart. And Uranus crossing in to the 10th house. 10th house is career, your social standing, how you want to be known in the world. And that over the next 6 or 7 years, you will find that the work that you've been doing, the industry that you are in, that there can be a lot of changes in it. And Leo, you're a fixed sign, so it's saying be adaptable. Okay? Know when to hold. Isn't there, some card game thing? Know when to hold and know when to fold. That is true for you, for your career aspect. And if you are looking to make some major changes in your career direction, it could be that it takes the 6 or 7 years before you can look back and say, yes, it really did make a difference. It really did make a chance. Now, again, the Uranus to your Uranus in your chart transit happens when you're 84, because that's the complete cycle. It comes back to where it was in Taurus between 1935 and 42. If you were born between 55 and 62, that's another Uranus square energy, which is what else can I do while I can do it? And it's also can be, there's other things going on, so it can be especially your second Saturn return, a preparation for the last third of life, when perhaps you can leave your job and do other things. And the all-important Uranus opposite Uranus, which will happen for those of you, Leo, who were born between 1975 and 82. Of course, 75 would be around now, 82 would be in 6-7 years from now. And that is a very important time to reassess your life and make some significant changes so you can live the next half of your life the way you want it, that's authentically yours. Uranian energy wants us to be our own independent self and to live according to our unique life and life plan, our life purpose, that we say this is what's right for us. And then the first square happens for Leo if you were born between 1995 and 2003. And again, 95 would be going on now, 96, just move it up 1 year at a time. And that is breaking free and exploring a lot that the world has to offer. If you ever wanted to just, take a year off, or work after, take a year off after college, or just save your money and say, this is my time to do it before other parts of life settle in, the first Uranian square is the time to do it. Okay, let's take a look at Virgo. Virgo. The Uranus energy in Taurus, you're an earth sign, that's earth to earth. So that's fairly harmonious for you. It is harmonious. And we'll be going through this 9th house, and 9th house is considered one of the most positive, helpful houses of the zodiac. And the Uranian energy in the 9th house it's meant to inspire you to think for yourself, to reassess your beliefs. I believe this, or I don't believe this, and find that sense of faith. It is about travel. It is about higher education. It is about learning. It's about sharing. And what you may find over the next 7 years is that there's opportunities for you to go places and to do things that you have not had the opportunity to do before. It also is a very good opportunity to learn. If you're thinking about going back to school, it can be very good for that. The only part about Uranian energy is because it's unpredictable and very changing. Be very clear about what it is you want to learn before you put your hard-earned money down in the tuition. And you could even say ditto for where you want to go. It's be very clear about it, because it can be this up and down. It's changing things. Uranus in the 9th house, because it is foreign travel. It can be that you have these great trips that are foreign to you. Now, maybe it has to do with foreign energy, literally foreign energy, where you go to a different country, but not necessarily. It just has to be something that can be foreign to you. And that also this energy of, I don't know if you can hear the buzzsaw going. I hope not, but probably you can. that this Uranian energy going through the ninth house, wherever you have wanted to share your knowledge with others, it's very good. And the ninth house is also considered the house of publishing. If any of you out there are writers wanting to be, that this can be your time where you put the ideas that you had in the past together and go ahead and publish it. Maybe it will be a blog, maybe it will be a book, whatever feels right for you. Okay, Libra. Oh, and the years where you will have your own Uranian transit to Uranus in your chart. If you're 84, that's Uranus return, because it takes that long. If you were born between 55 and 62, that is an energy of it's a square. It's like, what else can I do? Let me do it while I can. If you are born between 75 and 82, it's a very important Uranian opposition, which is the quote-unquote midlife time frame of reassessing your life and living your life according to who you are now and your own unique self. And if you were born between 95 and 82, just move it up, every year as for the 7 years for when it will happen for you. It is what's called the first quarter square, and that is a time to go experience life and to take that month off or that year off and go do something that, well, will I be able to do it, 10 years from now? Now is the time to do it. Okay, let's move on to Libra. Libra. As you see, the Uranian energy here's in Taurus, will be going through what's called your solar 8th house. The 8th house is traditionally called the house of death, sex, and taxes. And when Uranian energy goes through that, one thing you want to make sure that you pay your taxes, because you could get a surprise. The other thing is that you want to keep your eye on any money you owe other people, and keep a really close eye on your credit, so it's not that this is a scam energy. When Neptune is in your 8th house, you have to be more careful about identity theft. But Uranus can be a surprise, things that go on. Now, in terms of intimacy and sexuality, with the Uranian energy there, it can be a change in your agreements with other people. So if you're married, it can be a change in who's paying for what, or how do we redesign our split obligations. Maybe you don't want to cook anymore, or maybe you don't want to clean anymore, so let's pool the money together and get that service. So, or maybe you're single, and over the next 6 or 7 years there is an opportunity, not that you want to cohabitate with somebody, then that can be the change in the financial obligations. Now, on a spiritual side, this is one of the intuitive houses, and it can be a time where you get these deep, sudden insights through this transformational energy. You might go to some shamanic training, right? There might be some really deep things that happen for you. And the truth is, all of us, we may be eternal, our spirits may be eternal, but our bodies don't last forever. And when Uranian energy goes through your 8th house, you can hear about people going to the other side. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have somebody close to you die at all, but it can mean that you hear something on the news and you hear about a tragedy, about somebody so young and having some weird accident and they were just taken out. So when Uranus goes through that house, there's this knowingness that comes in and out. And again, it's a long time. It's not every day. But at different times, you can have this inner sense of knowingness of like, wow, life could be taken. Look at what happened to that. I mean, it's a stranger on the other side of the world, but wow, it can be so sudden that here today, gone tomorrow. And that Uranian energy can inspire you to live life, because the 8th house They call it the house of, death, sex, and taxes, but it is that realization of the flip side of not being here is being here. And Uranian energy always wants us to be alive. How can we be alive? Now, if you're a little bit of a daredevil, this can be, or you have a spirit of the daredevil. This can be when you go on a vacation, you say, I'm going to try bungee jumping, or whatever is daredevil for you. For me, it might be jumping off a high dive. That's not that high, but whatever's daredevil for you. It can be a time where you just like, oh, I'm going to try something that is daredevil for me. Could be rock climbing, whatever it is. Now, the ages where you will have a Uranian transit to your own Uranus, like when Uranus will be conjunct your Uranus is 84, you have to live to 84 to experience that. So if you're 84, that's another inspiring thing. It's like, what can I do? Wow, I made it to 84. What else can I do? Experience life. And you can have an influx of interesting things come your way. If you were born between 55 and 62, that's a Uranus to Uranus square. And that is another time of saying, I want to do things before I can't do them anymore. If you're born between 1975 and 82, it's a very, very important Uranus transit. It's opposition. And that is let me throw out anything in my life that's no longer authentically mine, if I'm not living what I want, and make some big changes. And if you were born between 95 and 2003, that is the first quarter square of, hey, let me go experience life. Now's my chance to do things before I settle into a long career or settle into getting married, having a family. Let me just go and experience things. Right? Let's move on to Scorpio. Scorpio. Now we come to Uranus being opposite your sign. So it's in Taurus, opposite Scorpio. And it will be traveling through your 7th house of partnerships. Again, this is very generic, but at the end of the 7 years, you will see that there will most likely be some pretty big, significant changes in partnerships, whether it's in romantic relationships, business partnerships, especially business partnerships, or just friendships, whoever you do things with. Now, because Uranus will be opposite your sun at one point over the next 7 years, that also can represent that you will have a change in your job or a change in your lifestyle. With Uranus going through the 7th house, it can bring a lot of different and unusual people into your life, which can be a great thing, shake up things, shake up the norm. If you were born in 1955 to 1962, you will be having Uranus square your natal Uranus. Now, when you're 84, Uranus comes all the way back to where it was when you were born. But if you were born between 55 and 62, the Uranus square Uranus energy is a time where there is a feeling of, I want to do what I want to do until I can't do it anymore. What if I can't do it all my life? So that it's an urge to get on with it. If you were born between 1975 and 1982, that is your Uranus opposition. That is traditionally the midlife crisis time frame. So whatever, to move it up 1 year over the next 7 years to see when it will be exact for you. And wherever your sun sign lies, if you are a very early Taurus, between 0 and 2 degrees, you will start to feel this urge of change now. And then again, just divide up the 30 degrees into 7, and then you will find which year that you can have these opportunities to change your job, change your life. So it's pretty significant for you. But on another, you have to look at the rest of your chart, but it does symbolize, with Uranus being opposite your side, that life out there out there, it's opposite, out there, can create these sudden shifts and changes that impact your world. Listen to the other Uranus and Taurus audio video that I did, because it's more about what you can expect on the planet around money and finances and our relationship to money and finances and how it will impact you from there. All right. So, and then the other years that where you will have a Uranus to your own natal Uranus transit is if you were born between 95 and 2003. And that's just a break free. Let me do things while I can. It happens around 21 or 22 years of age. Let me do things before, life settles in and I feel the sense that I won't be able to do it if I get this great job, because I wouldn't want to quit from that great job. So let me take a 3 months here and go in the, explore different things. And many times it is about moving. I want to move away from what I know and go to a place that is much different than what I grew up around or been used to. Okay, Sagittarius. Let's take a look at Sagittarius. Here we go. Sagittarius, as you will see, Uranus is in Taurus going into what's called your solar sixth house. And that energy is about your everyday work. The sixth house is also about health and routines. The sixth house is one of the traditional work houses that one looks at. There's more to look at for your job and career. For traditionally in astrology, the second house is your talents, right? What you came in the world to be able to, your raw material. 10th house is career position, how you want to be known, the ultimate career, how you want to be known, what you will be respected for. And the sixth house is more of the lower rung work, what you need to do in order to get to the 10th house. So with Uranus going through the sixth house, there can be some changes in your work world. What is it that I want to learn? Is there another job to take before I get the job that I really want? That type of a thing. And it also represents that you can get bored with your routine of life and switch things up, whether it's around your exercise, your health, anything that has to do with your daily habits. And as with all the signs, you may not feel it that much initially. It's in hindsight that you can see, like, oh yeah, I did make some pretty big changes around that. The years where you will have your own Uranus to Uranus transit is if you were born between 1955 and 1962. That is a square. That is, let me do what I can do now before I can't do it anymore. An opposition, which is very important. And that would be as if you were born between 1975 and 1982. That is a time to chuck it all out if it's no longer what you want in your life, and to start all over again. So many people change careers at that time, go back to school, change relationships, move away from where they are. If I don't move now, when will I ever move? Is it ever going to get easier for me? Let me live where I always said I want to live, that type of a feeling. And when you're 21, 22, that's your first Uranus square your Uranus. That's a time of just exploring life. It's like a freedom, more of a freedom thing. It's let me do things let me experience all the great things the planet has to offer. Okay, let's move on to Capricorn. Cappy. Capricorn, as you see, Uranus and Taurus, earth sign to earth sign. In the fifth house, it's called the house of hobbies, love affairs, children. And Uranus in the fifth house is a positive energy. And it will be a time to think about what you love to do, the hobbies you love, and you can shake things up around that. It is a reminder to enjoy life. What is it that you love to do? What is it that is important for you? What opens your heart up? Do you love your work? If you don't love your work, is there something else that you can do that you love, that you can feel like, oh yes, this is really worth it to me? If Uranus going through the fifth house also can be a time where you just change your hobbies. used to enjoy that. I don't enjoy it anymore. Let me do something that I really enjoy now. Let me find something else. Let me find something new. Romance, if you are single, or even if you're not, Uranus through the 5th house is saying go out and date and have fun. Go out, enjoy, don't get out of any sort of routine that you've been in. And this can be a time where you really explore different places, different restaurants, different things to do, different artistic venues. And it can be a time of great, unusual, and unpredictable love affairs. If you have children, it can be just a very busy 6-7 years with children, with all kinds of activities coming and going. Or if you are thinking about children, it can be that this time frame where it brings suddenly, because Uranus has a reputation of bringing sudden and unpredictable events and situations. So sometimes it can be as like surprise or pregnant, depending on the rest of your chart, but it can be that. The time frames where you will experience your own Uranus to Uranus transit, Uranus in the sky connected to Uranus in your chart, when you're 84 years old. It's a complete cycle. But if you were born between 1955 and 1962, over the next 6 years, just mark it out, you will have Uranus square your Uranus, and that will be an energy of, I need to do this now before I can't do it. If you're born between 75 and 82, that's your Uranus opposition. The Uranus opposition is the midlife crisis vibe, where it will be, let me check it out and start again. I don't like what I'm doing. I want to change my career path. The relationship isn't working for me. Let me change that. So it is a very, very important time. Sometimes it can come with an element of change for change's sake, and then there's a possibility of regretting it. So it's very important to know yourself deeply of what is the purpose and intention of the changes you want to make. And then the first Uranus to your Uranus square will happen if you were born between 1995 and 2003. That's a time to do things that you feel or you think or you believe you won't be able to when you're in your 30s, when you're later on, especially after your first Saturn return between 27 and 40. So take off for the summer, go do a wild job that's not really your career, but something that is a lot of fun for you. It's a time to explore the world. Okay, let's go on to Aquarius. Here we go, Aquarius. 11th house. Here we have Aquarius, and where's Uranus? Down here on the bottom of the chart. Getting ready to go through the 4th house. The 4th house is the house of endings and beginnings. So over the next 6 or 7 years, you can feel that sense something is ending and or something's beginning. Many times beginnings mean that something's ends, and that when something ends, it's the start of a new beginning. So that energy is pretty strong. The 4th house is traditionally called the house of home, where you live, family, and early childhood memories, where memories are stored. And Uranus going through the 4th house, what can come up is that you might learn about, a half brother or half sister through the DNA things that everybody's doing that you never knew existed. Something about family history that you never knew was going on. It's like, oh, wow, all of a sudden I have these cousins I never knew. How cool is that? Or maybe it's not so cool, but it can be something sudden and exciting and different, a surprise that comes up that is with family. Now, it also can mean that you change something around where you're living because it's your home. If you like where you live, it's just changing it up. Maybe adding on, doing some renovation, spicing it up in your own unique way. It's definitely can be that. And the Also, the other major part of Uranus and Taurus, it's a fixed sign, you're a fixed sign. When it gets up to the degree of your sun, sometimes over the next 7 years, it can represent that you have an opportunity to change your job or to add on, do something more than what you've been doing. So that can be that can be some good news. But the overarching, by the time the 7 years is up, you can look back and you can see the changes in your family, maybe your nuclear family, kids gone off, different things happening, extended family that have happened. But also, throughout this next 6 or 7 years, there is meant to be some memories that pop up out of nowhere that allow you to understand yourself in a deeper, more intimate way. It's like, oh, so that's why I always have this knee-jerk reaction when somebody says such and such. I remember when I was in 2nd grade, this happened to me, or when I was 4 years old, because this is early memories can come up, and there's this illumination. This is also can be a very good time if you're doing anything with shamanic work, training, any type of transformational work, that deep and sudden insights. The Uranian can create that awareness around that frees you, because ultimately the Uranian energy is about freeing us to our higher potential. Okay, let's move on to Pisces. Pisces, here we have Uranus going into your what's called your solar 3rd house, which is writing, communication, neighborhoods, brothers and sisters. So if there is a author in you over the next 6-7 years, can be a fabulous time to journal, whether or not it's something you want to be published or anything like that. It is a time to journal, to get your ideas out. And that there can be a change in the way you communicate. There can be a change in your thinking patterns. And through actually putting it on paper or journaling, dream journal would be fabulous, would be fantastic, especially because we still have Neptune going through your sign. And you also may find that your neighborhood changes over the next 6-7 years. You could be going along and then suddenly find that there's a rezoning thing, or a slew of your neighbors move out and all these new neighbors come in. Maybe some of them will be a little bit eccentric, like Uranian energy is, different. Or that there's something about where you're living where you don't quite feel, you're wondering if you're still connected to it. Because the Uranian principle many times can be, what is it that I'm connected to? Do I feel connected to my neighborhood? Since Taurus is the natural, by your solar chart, Taurus is naturally in your neighborhood, there can be this desire to have a lot of stability where you live, your neighbors, have everything nice and set and stable, because Taurus likes stable things. But with Uranus traveling through there, you can't count on that. You can't count on it to be stable. And Uranus going through Taurus does change up land and property and monies type things. But on one hand, it could be, if you're inspired to do that communication thing, that it could bring a little money on the side for you. Maybe you'll do some blogging to bring some money in. The siblings, because the 3rd house is house of siblings, your brothers and sisters, there can be changes in their life. Doesn't have to be good or bad. It's just change and as always, many times it's so subtle because you have all these other transits going on with your personal planets, which will be more in your face, more primary. But in the 6 or 7 years, you can look back and go, wow, I really see how I change, how I communicate, maybe communicate in a different way, more Taurian forceful way. This is how it is. Taurus is a fixed sign. You're not a fixed sign. You're mutable. So communicating in a way where you get your word across in a more stable way. So see the subtle changes in that. And also the 3rd house is the house of learning about things that help you function in your day-to-day life. software programs for the computer, how to use all the gadgets on your phone, the apps, the this, the that. And it is an excellent time to embrace that. Embrace learning or classes or courses, anything that has to do with this really will help me function in day-to-day life. And it can help you in your career too. So you might have this job, it's great, but if I only could have this on my resume, then I would get that position that I know is going to open up later. So take care to pay attention to these opportunities for these little classes that come up. Maybe they're a little certificate here or certificate there that will enable you to, Taurus, have more money. Basically, Taurus has ability to buy the things that you want. So if you have a Uranian square, there's certain times where Uranus will impact the Uranus in your chart. Uranus is an 84-year cycle, so it means it comes back to its natal position when you're 84 years old. If you were born between 1955 and 1962, you will have Uranus square your Uranus during one of those. Just, mark it out, use the math. It's 7 years, there's 30 degrees, and it's somewhere in that 7-year time frame, you will have Uranus square your Uranus. And that is a sense of, I want to do things before I can't do things anymore. The Uranus oppositions is a very important Uranus transit in your chart. It will happen if you were born between 1975 and 1982. Just move it up, if you're born, it will be 6-7 years if you're born in 1981 or 82, and it will be going on now if you're born in 1975. And that is a time to really look at your life and see if it's the life is the life that you intended for. If it is not the life that you intended for yourself, it's a time of great change. Change relationship, change job, go back to school, whatever it is that will move, whatever it is that will resonate with you. This is how I want it. I don't want that life anymore. This is not what I intended. This is the life that I want, and this is what I need to do to have it. And if you were born between 1995, around 21, 22, 23, and 2003, you have your first Uranian square. And that is like, oh, I'm out in the world, I'm trying a lot of new things. It can be a very exciting time where you meet very different and exciting people or move and have adventures. So thank you for checking it out, and please check out the other Uranus and Taurus video if you haven't already, because that is more in depth about what Uranus and Taurus wants for us as humanity and on the planet. Okay. As always, appreciate any feedback you have, your comments and likes and all that stuff that actually YouTube will actually say it's worthwhile to show this video to people because somebody commented and liked it. Okay, thanks again.